Welcome to the Unitarian Christian Alliance podcast, episode 56, Blood in the Water. I'm Mark Kane. This podcast is usually intended for Unitarian Christians, specifically those who take Scripture quite seriously. In fact, it's Scripture that convicts them of a single God, a He, and another who now sits beside him, the exalted man who overcame and was ushered into his presence. This Messiah, the descendant of David, has been given authority over the nations. That's who we are. And no, this is not Unitarian Universalism. So if you are new, and if you are a Trinitarian just listening in because this sounded interesting, and if you're curious, I'd suggest jumping all the way back to episode 1, the Perilous Trinity Deep Dive. That will frame this up quite well. Then catch episodes 2, 3, and 4 for a fascinating story that flows from episode 1. Anyway, rest assured, us Unitarian Christians are regularly reminded of how we are very wrong. But whether you agree or not, don't worry about it today. That is not the topic. This episode is rated G for general audiences, theologically at least. However, the topic isn't anything like an animated Disney classic. This is serious. In fact, for some of you, it's possible this may be one of the most important episodes I've done. Not because it's amazing, or because I've pushed something even larger than a piano out of a New York apartment. It's because it may help protect you from evil. Recall episode 48 with Nathan Moon. At the end, I was compelled to warn you about cybercriminals. Not typical UCA podcast fare, but I received several appreciative notes. It's like people thought that was helpful, caring. Well, yeah. This world is complex and confusing, and wicked people have mastered, and are daily improving upon, the art of using our confusion and fear against us, manipulating us into falling for schemes, giving away our life savings. Evil wants to take from us. Darkness wants to feed on the light and consume it. We look to others to make our lives better. We want the local police to keep our streets safe. We want the government to pass laws and make what we don't like illegal. We want our pastor to study hard and tell us what to believe because they're more educated and accountable, right? Well, more so than us. We love that our Google email filters the spam for us. And Facebook, it filters our news for us. Fact checkers filter away the lies from us. Our colleges have filtered away disturbing ideas. Wealth, technology, and opulence has birthed a generation that craves safety. Others must do things for our benefit. And if they don't do it well enough, well, maybe we'll sue for our mental anguish. Here's a harsh reality. The more others do for you, the weaker you become. We look to organizations like, the Catholic Church or the Southern Baptist Convention, and we see moral failings. We are appalled that a known predator leader can be moved from one group to another, and we fume in anger at the organization that, it seems, was working a bit too hard to sustain itself. Despite the efforts of groups like churches or organizations to try to do what is best, we can't depend on that. The local police will not prevent crime in your neighborhood. Laws that intended to eliminate a problem give birth to illegal profit machines that feed new varieties of criminals. Our pastor can, in fact, be wrong about some doctrine, and so can millions of religious people, and they can be wrong for centuries on end. Our Google spam filter doesn't catch it all, and Facebook could filter away details we really should have seen. And the fact checkers, I hope you're sitting down, they're also subject to bias. I know. And colleges might shield their students from the very discussions they should think about in preparation for the real world. So what am I saying? Ultimately, you have to be prepared yourself to withstand the dangers of this life. You can't ignore the enemy and expect safety. You can't place your hope on others to protect you because they will let you down eventually. Evil doesn't just prowl about like a lion. Evil is a shark. You may be bleeding in the water. Sin is more of a problem than one may realize. We think of it as sin against God and His righteousness. Well, naturally, because it is. See Psalm 51. But there's a reason behind it. Sin is dangerous. It's not simply that you missed one of the items on God's checklist. Sin damages you. It weakens you. Today, I'm going to intermingle cybercrime, that's internet crime, with matters of our hearts. I find the two to be similar, and both extremely practical. I've spent most of my life living with me, and I've grown accustomed to what goes on within me. I don't like some of it. I'm convinced that at some fundamental level of our being, of all our beings, we have a conscience. It's the inner disquiet you get when you know you are wrong, or are about to be wrong. See 1 John 3:19-20 if you want to start somewhere. But I've talked more about this before, like in episode 24, Conscience, or episode 5, describing the pain we feel, the coal in our stocking. Then again in episode 46, Towering Over Me, I discuss the false comfort of group identity as a protection against the irritating truth we wish to avoid. We have a problem, and it's this. There is such a thing as wrong. And when it's present in our life, we know it. We suffer from a lack of peace. That's the framework here. Much of what I'll share is inference, life experience, and observations of what's around me. So listen and disagree if you like. I think that being in the image of God includes having a reflection of His wisdom dimly glowing within us. It's that inner glint of truth which pricks us when we try to pickle ourselves in self-excusing lies. It's what we're trying to escape as we bury ourselves in distraction. It's there to help us detect good from evil. And if you're feeling it, it's working. But man's proclivity is to want to decide good and evil for ourselves, to take a prerogative that is not ours, to be free from the irritation of real truth, to make our own rules. And that approach does not result in peace. It locks us into a steady cycle of suppressing the truth, embracing and even celebrating our error, and gathering the support of others to ensure a steady flow of reaffirmation. Nothing we do resolves the irritation of the conscience. What we have now is a generation or two of people who have been raised on their own godhood. The ridiculous idea that there is something higher than us, some ultimate good, some measure of truth that is beyond our own feelings, that foolishness has been swept away at every opportunity. Now we feed our children self-esteem platitudes about being whatever you want to be, and that truth is what you feel it is. Worse, we adults obligate each other to go along with it, to embrace whatever the children say and feel. It's considered hateful to suggest something may be wrong, because there really isn't such a thing as wrong. Well, except for you. It's narcissism, and it's being burnt into their souls from early childhood. Shocker of shockers, the results have not been good. Is it the only contributor to what ails our privileged society? Oh, no, there are many problems. But there, at the very foundation of all that troubles humanity, is the desire to take for ourselves the reins of right and wrong. We've found our solution to the problem of not having inner peace. We've found it externally. Our salvation is drawn from this world, suckled from the distractions of relationships, politics, protests, group identity, religion, whatever works. It's because we have opted for salvation from the truth, not salvation by the truth. We've broken ourselves, and we're bleeding out puddles of need. We need to be involved in something. We need to be distracted. We need affirmation. If we're to sustain our brokenness, we need the world to be there for us in one form or another. That is sin. It's what we do to feel right rather than be right. So it's not simply that sin is something on God's no-no list. It's that sin is the pursuit of a life which actively replaces God's design with the trinkets and whiz-bangs and whoop-de-doos of the world. Those things are appealing because of what they provide us. We need those things. We bleed need. Consider the way scammers try to hook us. Maybe they text you something about suspicious charges on your card, and they offer you a link to some website to go and provide your identity to resolve this. Fill in your name and password and click send. They love that stuff. That text message is first generating a sense of fear and loss. Oh no, my money is being drained from my account. And then they offer a solution. Click here. You perceive their offer as a way to resolve the problem, to satiate your need to be safe. It's going to fix it, so you need to click it. Exactly. The scam doesn't work if it can't generate a need within you. This is very important, and yeah, it's a bit obvious. If you have a strong need, you will gravitate to whatever promises to fill that need. If your life is broken, if you were abused, if you're living with regrets, if you've not found the true peace of repentance and healing, then you are living with a need for external fulfillment. You need distraction, something, anything. That need is blood in the water. Pause and consider the remarkable shielding power of true contentment. Paul had learned to be content with plenty or with little, Philippeans 4:12. This means he was not yearning for fulfillment. He was not grasping for pleasures or for relief. The result? His enemies found no foothold. They had no leverage against him. He was not a tasty morsel to the wicked who walked in his midst. Instead, he was toxic to their evil. Here's where this gets uncomfortable. People who are broken become needy. More broken, more need. Need cries out to be exploited. You don't exploit someone who is content. You have to have a soft spot, a weakness, a gap in the armor. Evil feeds on broken people's needs. If we are embracing our sin, needing distraction from the truth, we are the prey, and evil can detect it. We are bleeding in shark-infested waters. This predator and prey model does not necessarily have to appear overtly dark and sinister. Sometimes it looks very innocent. The boy with the exaggerated fantasies about docile and petite, doll-like women. He finds a girl who had a terrible childhood, low self-esteem, and who wants to escape the painful responsibilities of coping with life. She gives him control. He takes it. That may look like, oh, what a good match. But it's really symbiotic need feeding at each other's expense. There are small sharks. Maybe they just want someone to judge, to feel contempt for, someone they can keep nearby who makes them feel better about themselves. They find the needy soul who is addicted to hero worship, who escapes their broken life by investing their energy into those with power or influence, hoping to absorb some of that through osmosis. The shark is the bully, and he attracts the doting, worshipful sidekick. A bad situation, yes, but it can be worse. It can get very dark. The child sex trade is a feeding hole for the most wicked of predators. They feed on the runaways, the lost, the drug addicted. These kids are hemorrhaging need. They are easy targets. They get consumed and then spit out when done. I can sense this in myself. I can sometimes see opportunities to benefit from others' needs. There's an abundance of broken and needy people. A shocking percentage of women have been sexually abused. The damage that this can do is profound, especially if they've not had counter-influences in their life, examples of selfless love and care. So, I've experienced this. I've had interactions with people in whom I can palpably sense the desperation of need. It's scary. A darkness slithers up to see if I'm interested, to test me. Ooh, just look at the opportunity. It's honestly unnerving that evil and darkness can be this real, crouching right there, ready for action. If I've experienced that, and I can see it for what it is and recoil from it, just imagine how it is for the predators who live for the thrill of the hunt. The broken soul oozing the need for approval and attention meets the broken soul oozing the need for control and power and gratification. It's a match made in hell. The sharks have keen senses. They know need when they smell it. If you experience needs like I'm describing here, consider it a warning bell. Your heart is struggling, and your pride is on the hunt for a way to placate it, to silence it. Your need will attract those who benefit from your need. And rest assured, there are darkened souls ready to come to your rescue. I'm convinced that sin is whatever we engage in as a counterfeit to true inner peace. If our heart is not at rest, we can find ways to forget about it and push it away. Sin does this for us, but the effect is temporary, so it must be repeated, a lifelong commitment. I don't know what background you have. Some circles downplay sin, like if you've already prayed the prayer, then you're good regardless. Some take every opportunity to point it out, especially in others. Some have cleverly redefined sin to mean something you do that makes me feel bad. Yeah, that's a hot mess that is quite popular today. And we'll be paying the price for that monstrosity for years to come. Sin is a problem because of what it does to you. It umbilicals you to the stimulation and gratification of the world as a pitiful substitute for peace. And more specifically, it cuts a wound which bleeds for the sharks. It weakens you and slows you, making you a prime target for the lions which circle the herd. Please, don't take sin lightly. I tell you this to harden you against danger. Yes, hoping that others have your back and are looking out for you, it has its place. But depending on that just makes you more unprepared for when the attacks come. Awareness is a defense. It's similar to cybersecurity. Individuals, organized crime, There are people thinking of ways to steal from you and harm you every day. And they're taking advantage of the rapid changes in technology, changes that many of us really struggle with. We have the capacity to harden ourselves against these people, but it can inconvenience us some. Like using the same password everywhere is pretty handy. But you have to know that this is exposing you to great risk. If your ESPN sports account is hacked and they discover your password and they log into your bank with it and it works, well, you were bleeding in the water and the sharks came. There are things you can do in your spiritual life and in your internet life to ward off the predators. If you choose not to do those things, and you certainly can ignore this advice, just know what can come. These are shark-infested waters. You enter at your own risk. But sadly, it won't just be you who gets hurt. When you lose thousands of dollars because the nice man on the phone seemed legitimate, he knew all about you, and really was trying to help you, and you were one of those who favored convenience in your online activity, one maybe kind of simple password used everywhere, well, you reaped the harvest. If you have some favorite sins, know that they are exposing you. They are nurturing the need to be satisfied, and darkness will take every opportunity it can. Your gambling addiction keeps the door open for the next thrill, one that may be too enticing for you to resist, and you lose. Your pornography addiction sensitizes you to sexual allure. Thus, some relationships grow more tempting, while others become dull. Families pay the price. Your use of food to drown your pain creates a cycle of increasing hunger. The food becomes a form of salvation. Your health fails, and those around you suffer. Truth is a defense. God's word is a light that keeps you from stumbling. Real peace is a powerful barrier. Thus, your contentment immunizes you to the predator. So when you notice that your heart is not at rest, and you choose to face the truth instead of running from it, then God's plan for humanity to live at peace with the Creator, that plan starts to manifest in you. You harden yourself against evil. Now it's time to get practical. As long as there are opportunities for evil, someone will attempt it. So here's some advice, some tips. It's not an exhaustive list, but I think you can take something from it and prevent something very unfortunate in your future. The first batch are tips for you, how you live and what you do. Then there are tips on what to watch out for. So first, have friends who have little to gain from your friendship. These are your reality checks. As your friend, you share your life with them, but since they aren't using you, they can afford to be honest with you. They don't need your friendship, so they are more likely to be objective. These are the folks who will stop you. Wait, you're doing what with who? Tell me more about her. So stay connected with people who care about you, but who don't have demands. Like, if you can't make it to their party, they won't guilt you. If you say no to them, they're fine. They can handle it. Let's call these low-maintenance friends. If you notice a friend has some odd proclivity or an obsession, and you seem to play a role in it, then this isn't one of those friends. Next, find a low-maintenance friend who is not part of your faith community. You can't afford to live entirely in a bubble. Faith communities that isolate can become breeding grounds for evil. Leaders can achieve levels of authority that are unhealthy. And in that power, discover the slithering dark opportunities to feed on the innocent. And in these communities, when you think something may be wrong, and your only friends are those who are just as caught up in the movement as you, well, objectivity is lost, and you start doubting yourself. Your uneasiness looks like doubt or unbelief to everyone around you, and so, to maintain your place in the community, you are manipulated back into compliance. You go along with it. It's insidious. But look at the history of cults. Look at the ample examples of abuse within religious circles. This happens because people lose touch with reality and objectivity. If you are a part of a group which pressures you to drop your connections with outsiders, which calls you to be so set apart that you feel guilty even having outside friends, then there is likely blood in the water, and it may be yours. Your isolation increases your prey profile. That's P-R-E-Y. You are increasing your chances of being victimized. Not that you will be, but that you are now an easier target. Not knowing this makes you an even easier target. So, now you know. Oh, your low-maintenance friend from outside your community may be a Christian, just from another group. That works. But they don't have to be. In fact, if you have someone you regularly visit and you share with, and they aren't even a believer, that's okay too. Why? Well, these people are likely to be critical of your spiritual journey. They are likely to raise an eyebrow at what you are up to. They may be just the pushback you need to stop and consider if you're in a healthy group. Again, you may not find any sympathetic ear from within your faith community. They may all be drinking the Kool-Aid. So this interaction with an outsider will challenge you some. And this is good. You need to be objective. They can help. If your faith is real, it will survive the critiques of an outsider. In fact, it can flourish. Now, if you're thinking, oh, I can see the value of having a friend who is like this, but I wouldn't talk about what we do in church, and, they wouldn't understand, or it would be awkward. Listen, if you're in a group that has practices that you'd be embarrassed to talk about to anyone but your own group, that is a sign that there may be problems. If your group has secrets and you have agreed to keeping them secret, you are a willing pawn of a potentially dangerous situation. You are being groomed into compliance and silence. Convince me that a shark would not find you a delightful and opportunistic morsel upon which to feed. 'Cause he would. This next tip has been popular for years. Question authority. There is a degree of authority within a community of faith, trusted and caring shepherds and elders who want what is best for you. But it is appropriate to question it. Their authority is not, or should not, be granted to them because of their title, or their position, or their age, or their sex. It's not because a majority of people like them or voted for them. It's because of their character and their faith. The people recognized this about Jesus. He had an authority that was not because of how he dressed, or who he knew, or having starred in a movie. His authority wasn't because of his family name. He didn't usurp authority by winning a battle or defeating an enemy. He didn't have authority because of his business skills, or because he owned a majority position in a successful company. He didn't have authority because of his wealth or his education. We seem so eager to look up to people and respect their opinions, but for the thinnest of reasons. We are prone to hero worship. Looking outside of ourselves, dumping our energy into someone else, it's a way to escape the problems of our life. It's sin. Learn to have some objective skepticism. Test, challenge, question. You want the authority figures in your life to be there because they are worthy of that position in your life. If you simply accept someone's authority over you, while at the same time you have legitimate and nagging doubts, then you are bleeding. This is just the kind of prey the predators appreciate, ones who can go along with things despite knowing something's wrong. Tasty. But you don't have to be belligerent. You can just ask honest questions. Be entirely courteous and respectful. If the authority figure loses their cool, well, there you go. And that's the next critical tip. Patience. Take your time. The evil that's in others, it will struggle to play the long game. There are so many victims out there. If you simply move slowly, you immediately reduce your risk. In cybersecurity, it's called work factor. It's how much effort it takes to achieve the criminal goal. Make it hard, and you are no longer an easy target. It's just too much work for them. We humans are wired for crisis response. It's how we survive. It's definitely how we survived when we lived in a more dangerous time. Like we hear the low rumble of a lion, and our hair stands on end. Predators will use our tendency where, in a crisis, we act first and then think later, which is a good thing when you need to run from a lion. But they will use it against us. They will get us worried. They will get us scared. They will paint pictures of possible loss if we don't decide to do it now. Urgency is their hammer, and our impatience is going to get us nailed. So embrace patience. When your new friend really wants you to go out tonight, or really wants you to read that link he sent, or really wants you to answer his overly probing questions, just take your time. If his motives are dark, he will not like it. You are not being a good victim. In your patience, you will be more likely to discern problems, to see troubling signs. Remember, the predators are feeding their needs. Your patience is getting in the way. So use patience to your advantage. The low-maintenance friends, the ones you want in your life, they will tolerate your patience without concern. They will wait because they aren't trying to feed on you. But the wicked will hate it. They may try to hide the hatred, but it will come out eventually. Everything in today's world screams now and fast. You don't have to play along. And when you get an email or a text which specifically triggers your, oh my gosh, my money will all be gone tonight if I don't transfer my life savings to another bank right now, don't react. Pause. Reflect. Ask questions. Talk to your low-maintenance friends. That's why you have them. Your patience is like the colorful skin of a poison dart frog. It signals not food. Next tip, share your life. One of the most basic reasons counseling is an effective way to deal with life problems is that it requires you to communicate your problems out loud. Thoughts that stay tangled up in your head take on a life of their own. They become wrapped in emotions and feelings. But to take those thoughts and arrange them so that you can speak them, that requires a more objective effort of communication. This is a good thing when the jumble in your head is becoming unmanageable. Trying to explain what you're feeling to someone requires you to specifically pin down those details. The words that come out are then disconnected and set loose into the air. They now exist outside of the stress and emotion of your head. And someone is listening to them. Be thankful that this is how we communicate. You wouldn't want your friend to simply plug into your head and experience the deluge of what's going on in your mind. They'd likely be just as overwhelmed as you are. So share. Talk. Especially to your low-maintenance friends. The process of organizing your thoughts helps you experience them more objectively and patiently. Writing them down has the same effect. So talking gives your friend the opportunity to offer insights that you may not be finding on your own. It's not because your friend is necessarily an authority on the topic or extremely wise. It's simply because they are hearing you speak. They are not hearing your raw brain noise. Sure, they can be incorrect. They can misunderstand you, and they can have wrong advice. But they have an advantage that you do not. They are not in your head. Remember, patience. Even if they have no real grasp on your problem, you can still be patient about it. You won't leap into action based on their misunderstanding. Just take the opportunity to listen to them. Sharing your life with your low-maintenance friends is giving them a view into the water where you are swimming. It's like giving them a lifeguard tower on your beach. You want other people's vantage points. You want someone who sees the fin in the water to yell, "Shark!" So share your life with these friends. They may be your first line of defense from a predator that you did not see coming. And then it follows to be honest to your trusted friends. Okay, this seems obvious, but the internet and social media is conditioning us to be fake. If something is wrong, even if it is embarrassing, hiding it doesn't make it better. If you're caught in a weird relationship and you feel like it may be embarrassing to talk about it, then that's likely your pride looking for ways to protect you from your conscience. Remember, avoiding the truth just to try to look good in your friends' eyes so that they keep admiring you, this is not good. The need for approval means you're bleeding. So you have to have honesty. Your friends can't help you if you direct their attention to the mountains while you swim in the ocean behind their backs. Next, sunk cost fallacy. Watch out for this one. It's in our nature to continue on with something once we started out. That's sunk cost fallacy. If we've already poured so much into something, we have a tendency to insist on seeing it to the end, even when we know it's a bad idea. Like the man who offered to help the woman get her groceries out to the car, and then helped load them, and then asked about where she lived, and then conveniently noted that he lived near there too, and then offered to help the groceries get to her home. Well, she was attacked in the end. But what happens is, you get something started. You make maybe a small and poor decision, and then one more, and then maybe another. At that point, it gets hard to back out. It's hard to say, okay, I'm done here. It's like our pride can't stomach the idea that we were foolish in the first place. So we bury that truth by plowing ahead. It's a part of our prideful nature. But wicked people know this. And they will scoot you further and further down a path until you feel the fool to back out. It's a dangerous tendency that you should recognize now. Prepare yourself to be okay with changing your mind midstream. If it's a bad decision, it don't matter if it was preceded by other bad decisions. Push the eject button and get out. The final thing I'll list for you to do, before I talk about the things to look for, is to deal with your sin. I've already explained why. Your need to feel good and to suppress the truth of your hurting heart, it makes you a target for anyone who knows how to exploit that need. If your need is deep, they'll know it. For some, I suspect the darkness may almost vibrate within them when they are in the presence of someone with deep needs. Here's a way to think of it. Quietly consider your life. What is it that excites you? What is it that, no matter how you're feeling, it can change the whole direction of your day? Is it someone complimenting you? Is it some unexpected money? Is it getting to work on a project with that cute girl? Whatever external things have such a transformative power on your life, those things may likely be scratching a very deep and itchy need. You see them as pure joys and thrills. What if they are instead open wounds? No, I'm not saying you can't experience joy, but there's a difference between simple joy and the elation that comes from dousing the nagging conscience. The douse is like a drug. You've got to deal with the sin. Now, part 2 of the tips. These are things to look for. Signs. How to spot a predator. Note, it may sound like I'm warning against a sexual or violent predator, and I am, but these signs are present in various ways. I know of a church in the 1970s that was fooled by a smooth talker, fooled into hiring him as a pastor. It was a mess. Back then, without the internet, it was hard to verify information, and he fooled them. You can bet that several of the following traits would have been seen in this guy. So apply these more broadly. We're talking about anyone who seeks to benefit at your expense. And it's not an exhaustive list, and these aren't rules which prove someone is dangerous. They are indications that they might be. It's a reason to take your time. And if someone matches 3 or 4 or 5 of these characteristics, then really take it slow. First, self-inflation. If they want you to see them as an authority, or to respect them, or to trust them, they will provide you with many reasons to do so. And they won't wait too long. Again, the work factor. It isn't likely worth months and months of effort to convince you. Better to try to convince you quickly, and if that fails, move on to easier targets. So they don't really dilly-dally. You'll soon learn about their noble deeds and valiant exploits and their credentials. Normal friends may let you discover that over months and years. The sharks don't want to wait that long, so they just have to tell you all you need to know so that you can get right to the trusting them part. Granted, some people do have noble exploits and awesome credentials. That's fine. The issue is the use of those to push you into trusting them. Next, watch for those who are headstrong and stubborn. If they are being driven by their neediness to take from others, if they need to feed, then they have a clear goal and a hunger that wants to be satisfied. They can be very stubborn, aggressively so. This manifests as impatience with your delays, with badgering, and difficulty in accepting no as an answer. Note, there are headstrong people out there who are just simply stubborn. It's their disposition, and they are not sharks. I think the best way to filter them out is with patience and time. If they truly care about you, they will respect you, and you can tell them to back down. The shark won't only be stubborn, but will demonstrate other traits as well. So don't shun all the type A people. Again, patience and time will really make the difference. And note that they may not appear headstrong at all, but instead friendly and kind. But if they are driven by their dark needs, it will come out. When you stop going along with them, you'll spot it. Next tip, find out who their friends are. Meet them. You can learn a lot about a person by the company they keep. A person who's being deceptive, he has to maintain control. Bringing in others and having conversations will blow open a fictitious person's persona pretty quickly. It's much easier to lie to one person at a time. Take notice if you have a hard time getting to meet someone's family and friend groups, and really take notice if you are made to feel bad for asking. People who are transparent and honest live much more simply than those who are opaque and deceptive. Naturally, then, the next tip, ask questions about people's lives. The more they talk, one of two things will happen. Either they will demonstrate their sincere honesty many times over, or they will eventually flounder into discrepancies. It's a win either way. You come to find out they're good, or you get out. Be suspicious if someone doesn't want to talk about their past, or never goes into detail. Next tip, secrets. Be concerned if you are told things that must be kept secret. This can be used to give you a false sense that they must really trust you, so you probably should trust them in return, right? Well, if someone is lying to you, then naturally they would prefer you keep it quiet. A lie persists until exposed. So convince you to keep quiet, and the lies can linger longer. Secrets are just not a good sign. If you don't know the person that well yet, they have no business bringing you into their inner circle and putting that burden on you. Legitimate secrets, like knowledge that could unnecessarily harm people, that's the kind of thing that happens in close and very trusting relationships. If someone is trying to whisper into your ear, maybe just throw up your hands and say, "Dude, my life is much simpler when I don't have others' secrets in my head. No thanks." Now, here's something to watch for. It's the overly helpful and eager soul. If someone volunteers to help you, your guard should be up. You may sense that it's just fine, it's okay, and great, it probably is. But if it progresses to offering even more help, maybe say no thanks and then let it go. Good people will recognize that and bid you farewell. The predator will not like that response and then try another tactic. It's sad that we have to do this, but I'm telling you, you have to do this. When someone is enthusiastically willing to help you and you let them, you are giving them the opportunity to enthusiastically help themselves. Maybe the guy you barely know in the next apartment is suddenly willing to spend a few hours fixing your computer for you. He could be fixing it all right by installing software that you were not asking for, software that can spy on you. Or maybe that alert that shows up with someone offering to help you to get the virus off your computer. Maybe that's not actually someone, out of the blue, showing up to make your life better. I know of a fellow, a retired doctor, who was contacted by Microsoft about his computer being compromised. The doctor gave them remote access to his personal computer. After a bit, they regretted to inform him that the situation was dire and that his bank accounts had been compromised. Oh yeah, all that urgent fight or flight response was now engaged. The helpful Microsoft agents gave him the number to the bank fraud department. Yeah, he called the number he was given, and sure enough, he found a very helpful and concerned fraud department on the other end. And you can bet they were very willing to help him protect his wealth. They convinced him he needed to transfer all of his approximately $1 million account, his life savings, into a government protection account. It was really their Bitcoin wallet or something, but he didn't know that. As he was to the point of transferring the money, he was getting suspicious, and he even reached out. Good for him. But it was too late. He was so far down the path, he couldn't find the will to back out. That's the sunk cost fallacy. He transferred the money. $1 million was lost. He called the FBI, and it was unrecoverable. People rarely just show up to help you. When they do, it's usually some small innocent thing. Help pick up your fallen groceries, change a tire maybe, or help direct traffic around your broken down car. These are probably good people. If they offer to help more, thank them and say no. The good ones will walk away. When they linger, that's the problem. And a pro tip, don't lead them to your house. Pretty much any time you need help, it's better that you ask for it. Ask people you already know and trust. If you need help with your computer, call the Geek Squad and ask for help. Predators will seek you out, not the other way around. So seek out the help that you need. Don't wait for it to appear magically. Along the same lines, a bonus tip. I pretty much never buy anything that was advertised to me. If I didn't initiate the search for it, I'm not interested. I just don't trust surprise emails that convince me of some product. If I didn't need it before I got the email, I don't need it now. Delete. Instead, when I decide I need something, I do the research. I make the calls. Then I make the purchase. It's just like you taking the initiative to ask for help. You are in control. Now, this one is more subtle. A shark is not interested in you thinking through things clearly, and certainly is not interested in you taking your sweet time doing it. Nope. So an effective technique is to get you flustered, to overwhelm your thinking capacity. Suggest this, then not, and then that, and then look at you like you were confusing, which confuses you, and then suggest the opposite, and then maybe an abrupt topic change. Who knows? The point is, someone who is managing to keep you unsure of things, who can make you confused, that person has you in a vulnerable position. Your thinker is handcuffed, and your patience may be waning. Excuse yourself. Go make an important call. Something. Even just say, "You're confusing me, and I need you to stop." Again, a good person will recognize that they were being a problem, and they'll stop. And if they're making you feel bad for asking them to stop, that's a bad sign. Oh, this is a great way to get you on the internet, too. Everything feels more confusing when technology is involved. If you aren't sure of something and it involves you logging in to some other site and clicking this and giving your identity, it's probably time to stop and talk to someone about it. This next tip goes along with the last. Anxiety and fear inducement. Just like confusion, getting you anxious and afraid is a great way to trigger your animal brain. When you feel you're in danger, you will act with instinct and not much thought. If someone seems to prod you into a sense of urgency, like, "You better do this now," then it's time to engage your patience and slow down. Same goes for emails that make you want to do something about it right now. There's a reason criminal spammers do that. It's because we fall for it. Now, this next tip, it's specific to Christians. You've heard of virtue signaling. It's when someone presents their moral stance publicly so that others believe they are of good character. It's easy to do on the internet, and there are a remarkable number of noble and good people on Instagram. Righteousness signaling, my own phrase, it's much like that. It's like virtue signaling, but with faith. If you are a shark seeking Christian prey, it just doesn't work if they think you are steeped in sin. So you need to make sure they see the opposite. Now, righteousness signaling can be relatively mild, like name-dropping of beloved Christian leaders. "Oh, you listen to so-and-so too? Oh, yes, isn't he on point?" It could be bragging about one's massive library of Christian authors, or wearing your Christian t-shirts, or a "What Would Jesus Do" bracelet. These aren't giant red flags, but they do kind of add up if you think something else may be going on. But then there's serious signaling, like calling out sins, especially sins that are popular in today's culture. Bonus points if being vocal about a sin earns them online persecution. That's very righteous. Then be mindful of someone's eager willingness to pronounce judgment on others. Nothing says, "I have gotten my life straightened out," like having the courage to name and list all the moral failings of others. And do note, if someone has a preferred sin to condemn, like if your pastor speaks against one particular sin every other Sunday, well, if a leader struggles with a certain sin, then it's a given that he's not quite at rest, not content. The conscience doesn't just let it go. So one method to drive it away is compensation. Do you struggle with sin number 317 from the Official Sin Classification Field Guide, 4th edition? Well, then speak out against it, frequently. How can you possibly be truly guilty for that sin if you do so much work to drive it out of your church, right? All of these are things people will do to try and make sure they are seen as righteous in other people's eyes. Am I saying one shouldn't speak out about sin? No. I'm saying that the practice can be used, along with other techniques, to lull you into a sense of trust and respect for their exceptional spiritual excellence. It could be a symptom of a problem, so just be careful. That's just a sampling of things to look for, but you get the idea. If I had to boil it down to the 4 most important points, it'd be this. 1. The sin in your life weakens you to predators, so spend some humbling time in the closet. Work on this with God. 2. Have a few low-maintenance friends in your life and stay connected. Share your life. Listen when they raise an alarm, when they think something may be wrong. 3. Practice patience. It's no fun for predators, and it affords you clarity of mind. It's amazing. 4. Recognize that there are people who don't think like you. They will hurt others, and possibly you. Know some of the techniques that they use to expose your soft underbelly, techniques that make you vulnerable. Just one more note, and now I'm specifically talking to us Unitarian Christians. We often feel very isolated, unwelcomed in many gatherings. It's why the UCA exists. See episode 1. But being isolated is potentially a problem. The lack of connection can be itself a wound, one that festers and grows. It hurts to have no one around. If that has become a need in your life, like a real need, you should know that it can be used against you. Your eagerness to fellowship can cause you to drop your guard, to tolerate some questionable things simply for the joy of hanging out together. Clearly, you should seek out others and build communities. That's where the real work of growing and maturing in faith happens, not through podcasts or Facebook groups. But if you recognize that your need for fellowship is pronounced, then it's incumbent upon you to not let your guard down. You should pay more attention. If someone nefarious detects that need, they may be just more than happy to offer you what you want. Know that there is a weakness present when you desperately want to not be alone. It's like if you realize using the same password everywhere is a bad idea, but you haven't fixed it yet, it's in your best interest to recognize that you are much more likely to be victimized. You can acknowledge that this increases your vulnerability. Someone could have discovered your email password, and they may have logged into your email account months ago, watched every email you send and receive, and every old email still lying around in your inbox. They could know all sorts of things about you. You need to know that this is a possibility. An online predator like this will know what things to say when they call you. I mean, clearly they are from the bank, because how else would they know about my 2 bank accounts, right? Let me assure you, they can know that stuff if they are reading your email. The dark sophistication of these people is amazing. And deciding to not increase your email security, it exposes you. If you don't choose to change your email password and make it unique for your email, and if you decide 2-factor authentication is just too much trouble, well, then simply recognize that you may be attracting danger. Be prepared. Oh, similar to gaining access to your email, but much easier, anything you put out on the internet is fair game. The more people know about you, the easier it is to get in your head and mess with you. Before I end, and I will end on a positive note. Sorry about all this. I've gone long, so here's a short bit of logistics. Check out the events list on the UCA website, UnitarianChristianAlliance.org. I'll be at Fuel next month. If you drop in, find me. Email me, podcast@UnitarianChristianAlliance.org. Also, get emails with some extra bits from me sent out each episode. There's a link in the show notes, or go to the podcast link on our website and sign up for the newsletter right there. The UCA conference is October 13th through 15th. Registration opens soon. Our website users will get an email, and it's the same prices as last year. We'll have some videos to share in preparation for the conference, including one to show you the venue in Springfield, Ohio. I've enjoyed reading comments on the YouTube version of this podcast. Ken, I'd share one of my favorites of yours right here if this wasn't like already an hour long. That's Ken from New Zealand. He suggests others share their thoughts there in the YouTube comments and therefore increase the ranking of those podcasts on YouTube. Cool. Or you could just go there and carry on a fun conversation with Ken. If you know of someone who you think could benefit from this episode, and I know there are people who would, please just let them know. Share it. Like I said, theologically speaking, it's pretty tolerable for a broad audience, even non-Unitarians. Now, finally, the positive ending. It's about true love.
And love, true love, will follow you.
No, not that. Why do this episode? Because evil is real. Some people out there don't want to love you with genuine love. They want to use you in ways that conveniently satisfy your needs and therefore can make you feel good and think it's love. Right? You're needy one moment for whatever, and then you're satisfied the next. Is that not love? Surely it's love. True love is selfless and giving, even to the point of death. It does not lash out and belittle you. It doesn't manipulate and confuse you. True love will actually be uneasy with your needs. It will recognize them as a problem, not an opportunity. True love wants what is best for you, even at its own expense. If someone gets overly selfish with you, demanding your every moment or needing your approval or whatever, it doesn't immediately mean they are a dangerous predator. But it does mean you have recognized a problem. So be patient with others. Be discerning. The light that is in you, that illuminates your path, they can see it. And when you don't participate in their need, you offer them a glimpse of something better. May God bless you in your truth pursuits. I hope this podcast serves you well. Oh, multi-factor authentication is when you use not just a password, but something else, like your cell phone. So if someone tries to log in as you to your email, they'll need to have your cell phone too, which is tricky to do if they are working from the secret cybercrime bunker in Antarctica. You can read more about it online or ask your kids or neighbors. I strongly suggest that you turn it on for email, bank accounts, and any social media sites you use.